Howdy folks, welcome to Module 11 of the CompTIA A+ course. Now for those of you that don't know, this is in fact the first module in Core 2, if you guys know what Core 1 and Core 2 is. So Core 1 is the first part of A+, which consists predominantly about hardware, and Core 2 is the second part of A+, which consists predominantly about the administration side of things. So this is the first module in Core 2. Up to Module 10, that would be Core 1. Now today's video is titled Managing Support Procedures, and yes, this is based on the 1200 series of A+, guys. Now as for the main sections in this specific video, like usual, here's a bit of a list for you guys. The first main section we'll be diving into is understanding industry best practices in support documentation. That will be followed by understanding and using professional communication. And then lastly, folks, the third and the last one will be identifying various operating systems and their uses. So there you have it, folks. That is the three main sections we'll be covering in this module. Like usual, if you want a more accurate list of what's covered in this video, please have a look in the video description down below. There I added a list for you guys of everything that's covered in this module with nice convenient timestamps if you'd like to jump ahead. Alright guys, before we get to it, if you haven't done it, don't be a weenie. Support the channel, support the content I create by giving this video a like. It really does help me out when you guys do that. And if you'd like to know when the second module of Core 2 coming out, being Module 12, maybe consider subscribing. For those of you that don't know, there is practice questions at the end of this playlist. So if you're not in a playlist right now, maybe go have a look on my channel. There's a playlist with all of these videos, and the last videos in this playlist is a bunch of practice questions specifically for A+. They're designed to test you against the objectives of the exam, and they will measure you against the same skills that you need to know for the exam. So go have a look at that. I will be making more of those as well along the way. And of course, if you want something more practical based, you can find that on my Patreon. The link is in the video description down below. So just go check out my Patreon for any and extra study material over and above that you might find on my YouTube. Alright folks, so with that out of the way, let's jump into this first module of Core 2. Alright, the first section, understanding industry best practices in support documentation. Now I'm going to start you guys off with something nice and simple. It is something called the standard operating system. Now if you don't know what that means, it actually consists of various things. It's not really something specific per se, it's a collection of things. One of the things it consists of is something called policy. So this would be an overall statement of intent in a company. That's basically the policy. And you also have something called an SOP. Almost all companies, guys, has an SOP. It's actually very common to find multiple SOPs in a company for various departments. So if you work in one department, your SOP or SOPs, there might be more than one, but it's probably going to be just one. It will be what you need to do in your daily routine. What is expected of you, what is your responsibilities, what you should do and what you should not do, when you should do it, how you should do it. That's basically your standard operating procedure. Almost all companies have this, especially any medium or large size company worth its salt. So with that, we can say the SOP is step-by-step actions to comply with policy. That's what it is. So it's a policy with step-by-step actions that you need to comply with. So what is expected of you in your organization? The standard operating system, folks, also consists of guidelines. So these, in case you don't know, but I think the name speaks for itself, is recommendations for complex or variable situations. And if you guys are looking for a couple of examples of SOP, when I kind of sort of gave you guys some earlier, maybe not the best, that would maybe consist of something like a software installation procedure. So how should you, your team, or your users go about installing softwares? What is the procedure? So maybe if I want to go and install a new software in my company, if I'm a user, I should first go and check, do we not maybe have something else that does the same thing? instead of installing 2 applications, I can actually get away with just using what we have already. I should just go and check properly if we don't maybe have that, especially if licensing is involved. If you're wondering why we would go and do that, it's not just because of inconvenience or convenience purposes. It's because sometimes licensing is involved, folks. You do not want to go and get an extra application, spend extra money on it, only to find out that, oopsie daisy, we actually had something that does the same thing. That's called wasteful expenditure. So in terms of installing software, first check in your company, whether you be the user or the admins, if you don't maybe have something that does the same thing. You never know. Check if you've got enough space. Check if this program is not harmful. And if you are not the IT person, maybe go and contact the IT person and get their approval first and have them check it out that this program is not maybe some sort of malicious malware. You never know. Other examples, folks, of an SOP is maybe possibly a new user onboarding. All companies at some point in time will have to hire new staff. Now, they normally have a procedure for hiring new staff. What is that procedure in your company? Are you going to go and advertise this position first to the public if you have a new vacancy? Or are you going to advertise it internally first and basically promote growth within the company? So especially if this is a high ranking position, some companies might go and advertise this position in the company first, see if somebody inside the company is not maybe interested. And if they can't find somebody inside the company, they will then proceed to go and advertise this externally, giving the outside public a chance as well. And once you've decided on somebody that you want to go and hire, what do you do after that? Are you going to go and give them a new machine? Is this a laptop or a desktop? So it's basically just the whole procedure of what exactly happens when we hire somebody and how do we go about doing it. Then, since we are talking about hiring people, that also brings me to another example. End user offboarding. So, since we know nobody works for the same company forever, although you do get some exceptions to that rule, some people do work for the same company forever, but most of the time, people don't work for the same company forever. You'll probably end up moving to another company at some point in time because we want to grow, we want to earn more money and things like that. So, when somebody inevitably leaves your company one day, what's the procedure? Is there going to be an interview or an outro of some kind where you're going to go and sit down with these folks and ask them, okay, cool. Is there anything that you need to hand over to us, perhaps? It's more like a handover procedure. What were your responsibilities? Is there any equipment that belongs to the company that you need to give us? Is there any way we can persuade you to maybe stay with the company? Can we do a counter offer, perhaps? Is there any grievances you had that we should be aware of? Maybe that's the reason why you're leaving. Did someone harass you? Was it not so nice work conditions, perhaps? We don't know. And I'll give you guys one more before we move on. This could also be responsibilities of each department. That's basically the one I gave you guys earlier. So each department has a list of responsibilities. What is expected of you each day? What you should go and do, what not, how to go about it, and all of that. So it's basically what it is. Anyway, folks, let's move you guys along to the second topic in this section, service level agreements. Now, guys, this is normally called SLAs for short. Lots of companies out there have SLAs, especially if you are in IT. So it could be that maybe, just maybe, you work for a IT company and you are effectively the IT for many other companies. So whenever they don't have IT or they don't have sufficient IT or whatever the case might be, you or your company will be contracted. You've got a bit of an SLA agreement with that company. It's a contract of sorts, which says what services you provide them, and when you provide it, how you provide it, and what it's going to cost them. So I used to do this for a lot of companies where they did sometimes have IT, but the IT didn't exactly know what they were doing. Or the IT was not allowed to go and do certain tasks, or they just didn't have IT at all. And if that was the case, that company would rent me from my company, and this might be, let's say, for 2 hours on a Monday, maybe between 9 and 11, 2 hours on a Wednesday between 9 and 11, and 2 hours on a Friday between 9 and 11. So when I go there, I'll go and do standard things like checking if their backups took place, making sure updates took place, checking if everything is okay on the servers, things like that. And if there's time left, which there normally would be, I would go from user to user and just check if there's anything that needs, doing. Do you have any potential issues that I need to take care of? So that could be an example of an SLA. That company would then pay my company a monthly fee for renting me from my company. They're basically outsourcing me as a temporary technician for the day for 2 hours, if you will. That could be an example of an SLA. But you get many other kinds of examples of SLAs as well, guys. Something you guys can probably relate to, which is more common in everyday use, is maybe an agreement between you and your internet service provider, whoever you get internet from. So basically, this SLA, guys, it defines the level of service requirements from an internal department or external, or it's going to even be a third-party vendor. So this now includes that ISP example I just spoke of. So if we look at something like an ISP, if you get internet from an internet service provider, they will obviously give you 24/7 internet. At least that's the idea, hopefully, here. And that SLA agreement's like a contract between you and the internet company. And it basically states what service they give you, which is obviously internet for 24/7, and also states the hours that they will assist you should you have some sort of technical issue. So this SLA agreement might say they will only assist you between 7 in the morning and 7 in the evening. So should you experience some sort of technical issue, they're not going to help you if it's after 7 in the evening, and if it's before 7 in the morning, they're also not going to help you, unless you meet certain severity levels. So depending on what the issue is, and depending on if you're a company or not, they may or may not assist you after hours. You'll find a lot of the times in these SLA agreements, they've got different severity levels, and depending on what the issue is, you'll get thrown into a certain category of severity, maybe level 1, level 2, level 3, and depending on how severe the issue is, it might be a case of we'll get to you when we get to you, we'll get to you tomorrow morning or whatever. Or if it's something very serious, like you are a business and your business is losing money now and then they might actually say, okay, you know what, boys, let's help this person immediately because this is very serious. So it depends on how severe it is and how big of an entity you actually are. Anyway, so yeah, in terms of service level agreements, guys, let me give you guys a couple examples. This could be internal, something like resource sharing and maintenance, for example. This could be external, something like an ISP throughput and cloud service delivery. So I already gave you guys the example of an ISP. So the ISP, what do they provide you with? Internet. Or this could be a cloud provider. What do they provide you with? Well, it's a very long list of things that they can actually provide. Maybe they're hosting your applications. Maybe they're storing your data. Maybe they're running your virtual machines. So this would be an agreement between you and a cloud provider, perhaps something like Microsoft Azure or Amazon's AWS. You know, it could be something like that. And it basically states what service they provide to you, for what fee, and, you know, all kinds of other things as well. Now, something we also look at, guys, is the rule of nines. Something I don't hear a lot. Well, at least we don't call it rule of nines. Let me put it that way. I don't hear that word a lot. We call it the 99.99% uptime guarantee. Now, some companies or entities will just give you 99.9% or 99% uptime guarantee. But it's very common to find a 99.99% uptime guarantee, especially from providers like cloud providers. Now, if you go and work it out, it equals to about 52 minutes downtime per year. If I just said 99% downtime, it'll probably be about between 4 and 8 hours downtime. I don't have a calculator right now, but I think that's about 4 to 8 hours per year. So that's not a lot. It might seem like a lot, guys, but it's not a lot. It's absolutely amazing. If we go and look at things we have to go and run on premises, your own servers and stuff on premises, your own physical servers. If you look at things like keeping that server up and running throughout the whole year, it's probably going to add up to hours, days, maybe even weeks of downtime. So if I had to go and turn the server off now quickly for an hour to go and change the power supply or change a RAM chip or do an upgrade here and do a restart there, all those bits and pieces add up. 20 minutes here, 30 minutes there, 60 minutes there, 5 minutes there. It adds up, guys. And if you add up all that downtime throughout the whole year, it adds up to way more than just 4-8 hours downtime per year. It adds up to days, weeks sometimes. Now, Microsoft or these entities, you know, whoever they might be, they give you a 99.99% uptime guarantee sometimes. Other times it'll just be 99% uptime guarantee. That's only 4 to 8 hours downtime, or in this case, 52 minutes downtime. That is amazing, guys. There is no way you can achieve that on your own. And there's actually a very good chance that you might have 100% uptime, but they won't say that because you never know. Something can always go wrong, and then you can go and sue them because they said 100%. So to protect themselves, they'll say 99.99% uptime guarantee. So that's pretty impressive, guys. Now, most forms of cloud, if not all, and a lot of other platforms these days, they all provide us with 99% uptime guarantee. And that is something we can't really achieve on premises. It's not just the cloud that you'll get this 99%, but that's predominantly where we will see it. And then the last thing I want to mention of this SLA agreement before we move on, guys, is the SLA agreement normally outlines the complaint process or processes and the potential financial recovery for unmet metrics. So how do we go about complaining, or how can the customers or the users, which might be you, mind you, how do people go about complaining should they have some sort of complaint or grievance? How do they go about it? Is there like a support email address, a number? How do we go about this? And should there be some sort of financial loss of some kind, how do we recover from that? What's the procedures here? So the SLA agreement normally outlines all of that for you. Alright folks, let's move on to the topic of incident and ticketing systems. So basically what this entails is it's a system where users, this could even be you guys, where you need to go and log a call or log a ticket. So if a user has some sort of issue, some sort of technical issue inside their company or inside your company, there's normally a ticketing system they've got to go and log this issue that they're experiencing. So in this system of sorts, they would normally have to go and basically explain what the issue is that they are experiencing, just in short few words. I am having an issue because my PC does not want to start. I am having an issue because my mouse does not want to work. Or my internet keeps going on and off. Or whatever issue they are experiencing. So they will go and explain briefly what issue they're experiencing, since when, how often this is, more or less how serious this is. That's what the system is all about. And then in that system, somebody else on the other side will receive that, well, let's call it a ticket. This might be you yourself. I've seen in some companies, the technicians will go and receive the tickets directly themselves. As soon as a user logs a ticket, the technicians will receive that ticket, and then they will go and deal with that ticket, depending on the severity of that ticket. So if it's not a severe ticket, then you'll be in the queue. If it's a very severe ticket, because these tickets do get logged in different categories, if it's a very severe ticket, that ticket might jump the queue somewhat, and we'll deal with that one first. If it's like a ransomware attack or a server that's crashed, something along those lines, that is pretty severe, and something like that might potentially jump the queue. But if it's something not too serious, then you will get a ticket number, and the first available technician will obviously assist you when they've got time. So you are in the queue, and you just need to wait to be assisted. Other cases, what might happen is, instead of the technician directly receiving it, a person, an agent of some kind, we call them agents or whatever, they will receive this, and they will go and categorize this ticket of yours depending on the severity, and they will go and allocate it to a technician, which we'll get to you shortly. So yeah, with these ticketing systems, guys, we say they manage requests, they manage incidents and problems for internal users and external users. So if it's for your own internal users, it could be that you are the technician and you might possibly receive these tickets directly on your computer, and you can go and deal with these tickets. So these ticketing systems actually get used in a way to keep things organized, but it can also be used in a sense of checking your KPI, key performance indicators. So when it's time for your performance review in a company, should your company do that, they can go and check if you're actually doing your job and if you're actually doing what you're getting paid for. It doesn't help we pay you a monthly salary or a weekly salary, but then we go and check in a ticket system that we see you're not closing any tickets. So this system gives us an indication that you're actually doing what we're paying you to go and do. So a lot of companies will go and use that as an indicator to see if people are actually doing what they're supposed to do. The problem of some of these systems is, in a lot of companies, when a user, especially people in management positions, when they've got some sort of technical issue, they don't want to log a ticket. They want to be assisted and they want to have this done as quickly as possible, but they generally refuse to go and log a ticket. Sometimes they just feel important. These people are like, who do you think I am? I am the manager. Why should I go and log a ticket? And you get those people that just, I don't know, they're just lazy. Some of them are just plain too stupid to go and do it. I don't know. Now the problem is, now you go and assist these people, potentially managers, and you ask them, okay, very politely afterwards, sir, I've now dealt with your issue, but do me a favor, still log the ticket so I can close it on my side so that it shows in the logs I was here, I was assisting you, and that I wasn't doing nothing. And often they'll say, yeah, sure, we'll go and do it. And guess what? They're not going to go and do it. So that, folks, is why a lot of the times you'll find people in the IT department are so rude, or at least they come across as rude, and they'll tell you, have you logged the ticket? There's a reason behind it, guys, because if you don't log that ticket, they get into trouble. It looks like they're not doing any work. So you need to log that ticket for them to come out, because it shows that they were actually doing some sort of work. If you don't log the ticket and they come out and assist you, and now afterwards their boss or their manager queries them, what were you doing in this time slot? They won't be able to prove anything. So yeah, log the ticket, guys. So this incident and ticketing system, guys, it's a process which begins with the user contact, which generates a ticket and assigns it possibly to an agent. The user will have to start the process. They'll have to open a ticketing system. It's sometimes a website of some kind. They'll have to go and give a brief description of their problem, like I said earlier. And once they go and log this ticket, it'll often go and send them a mail or send them a message with a ticket number or a reference number. And it may or may not get assigned to an agent, which will allocate this to a technician. Or it might possibly get sent directly to the technician itself. In this ticketing system, as I've said before, the user will have to go and briefly describe their issue. And should this go to an agent, that's a maybe, the agent will then go and categorize these cases by severity and urgency level. Now, there are cases where these agents might actually be the technicians. Sometimes we call them technicians, sometimes we call them agents. So yeah, guys, in the event of the agent possibly being the technician, or let's just say the technician receives the ticket themselves, the agent or technician will then go and troubleshoot or escalate. So in the beginning, it starts with a basic technician or basic agent that doesn't really know that much. This is probably like a junior of some kind. And they'll deal with the not so serious issues. Should they be unable to deal with the issue, they will then go and escalate this to another tier. Companies sometimes have multiple tiers. The first tier, level 0, level 1, is basic technicians that don't know a lot. And we all start there, guys. There's no shame in that. Even I started there. And then eventually you'll maybe work your way up in a help desk to tier 1 and tier 2 and tier 3, where these folks are considered engineers and they're subject matter experts and all that. So when a lower tier, possibly tier 1, when that tier is unable to solve an issue, they escalate it to the next tier. And if that tier is unable to solve it, they escalate it to the next tier, which is just a higher tier with more senior staff that's got way more knowledge and way more experience. These will often be engineers and specialists and, things like that. Now, since we have mentioned categories and severity and all that, let me take you guys through that. So it's kind of like a subdivision of the same topic here, if you will. So here we go, categories and severity. So these categories, folks, could be group tickets for assignments, reporting, and analysis. I'm not sure if I'm even pronouncing that word correctly. Anyway, so this entails things like reports. If you're not sure what that includes, this is IT as a standard operating procedure for provisioning. So what they need to go and do and what they should not go and do. This reporting and analysis might include things like incidents that took place, errors or unexpected situations that took place. It may or may not include things like problems, causes of incidents. So what actually caused an incident to take place in the beginning? So maybe we took care of somebody's hard drive that now failed, but it could be that that hard drive was not an isolated incident. Maybe people's hard drives keep failing in this specific department, and it might be because there's a power issue. Maybe the voltage keeps going up and down, and that could be a problem. So we resolve the immediate incident at hand, but there's an underlying problem here, and we need to deal with the problem, otherwise the incidents are going to keep carrying on. Anyway, other things we can mention here under categories and severity, guys, is category strategy. So folks, this is simple top-level categories for users, and it's detailed. Then we also have the severity level, which basically just classifies tickets by impact to prioritize them. So some companies will have about 3 levels, some will have 4, some I've seen have up to 5 levels. So assuming this company has, let's say, 5 levels, we can call them level 1, 2, or 3, or low impact, medium impact, things like that, whatever. The company's got 5 levels. So if you are a user and your keyboard's maybe just not working or your mouse is not working, that's not very serious. You'll probably be classified as level 1. So level 1 is generally one user that it affects. It's not too serious. It's really a case of we'll get to you when we get to you. You will get a ticket number, and when a technician is available, we'll get to you. Level 2 tickets is normally when it still affects one person, maybe slightly more serious, but still a case of we'll get to you when we get to you. Level 3 tickets, assuming there's 5 levels, will be when it starts affecting possibly more than one user, or the company is possibly experiencing financial loss now due to this, or maybe all of the above. So that one, you might possibly jump the queue now. So you might be able to jump the queue because it's slightly more severe than the other ones. Level 4 and 5 we will even assist you after hours. So up to level 3 is a matter of it has to happen in business hours. If it's now 4 o'clock and 4 o'clock is time for me to go home, tough bananas, I'm going to deal with you the next morning when I get to the office. But level 4 and 5 tickets, we will deal with you even after hours. It's so severe that we will even assist you after hours. It's very severe. This could be a server that's crashed. This could be some sort of malware like ransomware. It is very serious. So those are examples of categories where we'll go and prioritize you. And depending on the priority level, we might assist you immediately. We might assist you later. You might be able to jump the queue or you might not. It all depends on how urgent your ticket is. So when you go and log your ticket, that's one of the reasons why we ask you to go and give a brief description, because our agents or possibly the technicians themselves will go prioritize this into a category, and depending on how serious it is, we'll get to you either urgently or we'll get to you later. Alright folks, let's move you guys on to another topic, still within the major topic of tickets. So let's call this one ticket management. You'll see that this whole first section, because there's 3 sections in this module, is predominantly going to be about tickets in one way or another. So now we're talking about ticket management, and after this we'll talk again about tickets but from a different perspective. So in terms of ticket management, folks, we already know that this might be an agent, might receive it, it might be you, and somebody's going to go and look at the brief description and go and categorize it. So in terms of ticket management, ticket tracking, folks, is very important to make sure that they are categorized correctly and to make sure we've actually helped the user and we did not skip someone and we did not leave them too long. So ownership and status of tickets must be tracked at each stage, folks. Then we also have something called escalation, which I did briefly mention earlier. So obviously we've got different tiers and different severity levels. So should a technician, this could possibly be you, should a technician deal with a ticket and they're unable to resolve said ticket, they will then proceed to move this ticket to a higher tier. A higher tier with people that's got more experience, they're more senior. So you get lots of tiers. Often we'll refer to tier 0 or tier 1. Tier 0, tier 1 is where the technicians have got no experience or minimal experience. These might be juniors. In some companies, tier 1 is a matter of there might not even be technicians involved. This might be a matter of the users have to go and help themselves via some sort of knowledge base. They've got to go and read up, and if they really can't help themselves after reading through all the instructions, then they will go to tier 1 where some junior might assist them. So in terms of escalation, we can say complex issues, severity changes, or involvement of senior technicians, decision makers, or external services. So escalation is really going to depend on, okay, maybe the issue is just too complex. We've now opened the ticket, the technician is now looking at it, and we noticed, oh shucks, this ticket is actually too complex for me. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't have experience of this. And that technician, maybe it's me, I will go and escalate this to 1 tier above me, and they will also go and have a review. They'll have a look at it, and if it's too severe for them, they'll maybe just go and escalate it again. It all depends on how complex it is or how severe it is. So I think to help this make more sense, let me give you guys escalation tiers here, just so you guys can get a feel for more or less what this might look like. So let's start you guys off with tier 0, literally tier 0. So tier 0 will probably be a matter of it's self-service via some form of knowledge base, or there's a help bot of some kind. So the user will have to go into the knowledge base. It's got things like frequently asked questions. They can go and look at questions that other people have asked and what the solution might be. There might be some sort of automated help bot. You'll find especially a lot of those on websites these days. We can go and ask it questions, or it will ask you questions. It'll give you a bunch of options to go and choose from. Depending on the option you choose, it'll give you suggestions of what you can possibly go and try. So that's the very, very first tier here, which we often call tier 0. So if that does not help the user, then we move on to tier 1. Tier 1 is now where there's a human being possibly involved. So this could be initial diagnosis by an agent, possibly some junior technician. And if they still can't find the issue, that technician might now escalate the user or their ticket to another tier. A higher tier of people that's got more experience, more senior. So that will be tier 2, folks. So escalation to senior technicians or third-party support. It might be a matter of we might even need to go and escalate this to some form of third party. You never know. It does happen, guys. And if that fails, which is unlikely, but if that fails, then we'll move on to tier 3. Escalation to the engineers or senior engineers. So that's basically the subject matter experts. If these guys can't get it done, then I really don't know what we're doing here. Alright, and then folks, clear written communication. I think the title explains itself, but if that doesn't make sense. In terms of tickets, we're still talking about tickets here, just so by the way. So in terms of tickets, you as the technician, you need to be as clear as possible when it comes to these tickets. Also in your emails, quite frankly. I know that's a little bit unrelated, but when you go and deal with your users, your customers, be as professional as you possibly can. Be as clear and concise as you possibly can. Remember, we never know who's going to be reading this email. Maybe your intention was to go and send this email to just the user. Meanwhile, this ticket might get escalated to other people down the line. So it's always important to go and send your stuff as clear and as concise and as professional as possible, because you never know who's going to be reading it. Now, coming at this from a ticket perspective, very much the same can of worms here, folks. Document the ticket's life cycle. So as this ticket progresses, sometimes we don't get to close these tickets immediately. Sometimes they're a little bit more complex. So as this ticket proceeds through the different tiers, and different people or technicians deal with this ticket and they go and test different stuff, document the life cycle. When was it opened? By who was it opened? Who dealt with the ticket first, if there was a human being that dealt with it? What steps did they take? Did it work? Did it not work? If it got escalated, who escalated the ticket? To whom did it get escalated to? And what did that person do? And on which days did this happen? So document the ticket life cycle. This also includes the issue description. So that will be an issue description by the actual user that initially logged this freaking ticket. It obviously includes your progress notes, like I just said. And eventually, should you resolve the problem, which we normally do, the problem resolution. So if somebody were to go and follow this whole document life cycle afterwards, they should be able to see who logged the ticket. They should be able to see, did the user go to tier 0 or tier 1? They should be able to see, did this ticket perhaps get escalated? If so, by who and why? What was the reasoning for it? And if it got escalated again, once again, by who and why and to whom did it get escalated? What was the notes there? And eventually, if somebody managed to actually solve this person's problem, what ended up being the solution to this problem? So we want a full document trail of exactly who dealt with this, when did they deal with it, how long did they deal with it, and what ended up being the solution here, guys. So with all of that being said, be clear, like I said earlier. Now this means, folks, avoid jargon and use plain language. Don't go and use slang. Be professional. So whether it be the ticket, whether it be an email, whatever, be precise. Don't use fancy technical jargon that's going to confuse people. Remember, you are a subject matter expert here, and often the users will not know what those fancy terms means that you guys are using. So try and keep it as simple as possible. I actually want to go as far as to say, dumb it down. It sounds mean, but I actually want to go as far as to say, dumb it down. We're not doing this to offend anybody. It's simply so that people will know what we are talking about. So avoid fancy jargon. Use plain language. Don't go and shorten your words and stuff. Use full words like the English dictionary dictates. Be concise, guys. This, in case you don't know, it means use as few words as possible. Don't go and type a whole flippant story there. No. Be straight to the point. Be professional, be concise, be straight to the point here. Because you never know. Tickets may be reviewed, like I said earlier. They could possibly be analyzed afterwards for whatever reason, and they might even be shared with customers or somebody else. So always assume somebody is going to read this, somebody you never actually intended for. So pretend as if other people are going to read this thing afterwards. You never know. So if you pretend or imagine for a moment other people that you did not expect are going to read this as well, maybe your whole perception will change on how you go and type this. Alright folks, and then something I did briefly mention earlier, which is generally part of tier 0, knowledge base. Now, if somebody were to go and log a ticket for blah blah blah, one of the things they might be prompted towards or pointed towards is a knowledge base. Now, besides logging a ticket, there's lots of knowledge bases out there, so you'll find lots of companies and vendors and stuff will have a knowledge base of some kind. They literally just call it a KB sometimes, which is just the abbreviation for knowledge base. It might be on their website, it might be built in somewhere, it might be in an actual physical manual, who knows. So this knowledge base normally contains a whole bunch of stuff to help the user help themselves. Teach a man to fish and they can go and fish for a lifetime. So help the user help themselves, and if they still don't manage, then we can go to tier 1 and we can go to system. So in terms of knowledge base, folks, it's a self-serve repository with troubleshooting articles and frequently asked questions for end users. It also includes things like an in-depth service information from past issues or service requests. It might not. It depends on what we're talking about here. It depends on if this is on a vendor's website or whatever. It may or may not include external knowledge bases from vendors, which provide additional resources. Now, that's something I see quite commonly, folks. Anyway, guys, I'm going to give you guys one more topic in this section. Then we'll finally move you guys on to the second main section of this video. The last topic here is not directly linked to tickets per se. It's more about policies, and that will be policy documentation. So what I want to mention here with you guys, and this is something I can guarantee you will be in the exam. In the exam, you will have to be able to identify different kinds of policies. One of which is an acceptable usage policy. We call this an AUP. Now the chances are they might only refer to this as an AUP in the exam. So they might give you a whole bunch of policies and they'll say, which one of the following policies does this? Or which one of the following policies does that? Or they will give you a policies abbreviation, very much like the one we see right now, and they'll say this is what? And you'll have to go and choose from a list of 4 possible answers, and each of them will be like a basic description of what it actually is. So an AUP, guys, is basically a policy that governs the proper use of services or resources. If that still doesn't make sense to you, there's many examples I can give you guys, but it basically specifies what you're allowed to do with company assets or resources and what not. I think the most common example I can give you guys is in a lot of companies, when you start up a company computer, whether it be a desktop or a laptop, when you start it up, that screen where you land on, where you would normally go and type in your Windows password, assuming you even have one, on that screen, before you even get to type in the Windows password, there's like this little splash screen that pops up there sometimes in some companies. Not all companies have got this, but it is quite common to see this in big companies. So it's a little bit of a splash screen. It kind of looks like a terms and conditions page. You've got to go and read through that. And it basically dictates what you are allowed to use this company PC for and what not. It may or may not specify that you're only allowed to use this machine for work purposes. You're not allowed to go and play games on it. You're not allowed to go and do your own personal matters on it. You're not allowed to go and store your own personal data on it. You're not allowed to go onto, these illegal websites. You're not allowed to go and do social media on it, and. So those are just a couple examples of what it may or may not include in that acceptable usage policy. So it's normally on company assets or company resources, and it's usually something they will implement to prevent their users or their staff members from abusing company assets or resources for personal gain. I mean, think about it. If you are the owner of a company, do you want your employees to go and use your company PCs for their personal stuff? Most employers will say, no. Some employers are cool. They're chilled. So if it was me, depending on the nature of my business, I'll probably be like, you know what, it's fine. Now, it just so happens that I do have a company, guys, and in my company, I actually do allow my employees to go and do that. I normally tell my guys, you know what, bro, you can do what you want with that PC. If you break it, you just need to go and replace it, but you can do with it what you want. I give you this machine so you can go and do your work, but if you want to go and play games on it, no hard feelings, I'm cool with it. So that's the kind of boss I am, but not everybody is like me. Most companies will tell you, you know what, you can only use this machine for the purposes of work. So yeah. So this AUP, I'm going to keep using the abbreviation because that's what they will use in the exam, so I'm trying to get you guys familiar with it. This AUP, it protects organizations from security and legal risks by prohibiting misuse, unauthorized installations, and intrusion attempts. So if that doesn't make sense, let me put it this way, guys. If you are using my company PC now, and you go and install pirated software, you can imagine that's going to be very bad for business if I get caught, because my company is going to be put in a very bad light. So that's a no-no. Something else that's of a concern here is if you're going to go and install all kinds of stuff and change all kinds of settings on my machine, it could be that you might accidentally end up compromising this machine to where it maybe has malware on it. Spyware, ransomware, whatever, and that's not going to be good for my company or my business. So it's not always that we want to be mean here. It's sometimes literally just for the interest of the company. I might love you. I might really, really like you, but I just don't trust you on a PC. I honestly don't trust your skills on a PC, perhaps. And I know, if you're going to go and install random stuff from one of these not-so-nice websites, I know you're probably going to go get some sort of malware on this machine, and that's going to come back to my company. So it's sometimes just for those reasons, guys. It's because the users don't always know IT like we do. So we sometimes have to restrict their actions. It's all it is. It's not a personal issue that I've got you. It's within the interest of the company. So these acceptable usage policies, they might possibly restrict or limit non-work related internet use. They may or they may not. And this also is a regulatory compliance thing, which can be enforced with login splash screens reminding users of requirements. So this login splash screen, the most common one I've seen, you do get other ones, is when people start a PC and before they get to log into the PC, before they type in the Windows password, there's a bit of a reminder that says, hey, listen, Joe, remember, you're only allowed to use this PC for work. Don't go and install your personal nonsense on here. So there's a bit of a reminder so that if they go off the rails here, there's going to be consequences. Alright folks, we have finally reached the end of the first main section. There's still 2 main sections left to go. The second main section I'm moving you guys into here now is called Professional Communication. And the title alone should already kind of sort of give you an idea of what you can expect in here. It is what it is. Now the first topic up here should come as no surprise. Professional support processes. Hopefully I'm not butchering the word processes there. I can't always pronounce that, but there we go, nonetheless. So if you don't know what this is, it includes things like professional documentation in your company. So if you are a medium to large size company, this will especially be important, but I'm not saying this is not important in small companies. It's just more common to see this in medium to large size companies. So this professional documentation, guys, it's things like contact information and hours. That should be clear. So how can your customers, your users, your clients contact you, and when can they contact you? So if I am, for example, an ISP company, an internet service provider, how can my customers contact me? So on my website, there should be maybe a phone number and email address. Maybe on the routers and stuff in their home, there's a sticker on there that's got even contact information. And it should specify, call us between 7 and 7. If it's after 7 evening, tough bananas, guys, tough bananas. In this agreement of sorts, it should also set expectations and a timeline. So this kind of refers to that SLA agreement we spoke of earlier. So we should set expectations and a timeline. So let's say you do get a hold of me. Let's say for a moment I am your technician and you do get a hold of me. Whether it be via email or phone, it doesn't matter. You get a hold of me. Now I'm listening to your complaint or your ticket or your issue. And I'm going to tell you, okay, listen, bro, I'm going to have a look at it now. But it could possibly take an hour for me to get back to you. Something I would suggest you guys do is always give yourself a buffer. If you know what the issue is, and you know how long something's going to take you, always add a little bit of time, just a little bit of a buffer room, because the last thing you want to do here is to go and set expectations to the client or the user and then not meet them. You do not want to tell them, hey, it's going to take 60 minutes, and you end up taking 70 minutes. That looks bad, it looks unprofessional, it looks like you don't know what you're doing. So if I know something's going to take me 60 minutes, I might want to tell the customer, you know what, it's going to take me 90 minutes to fix this. And if I end up fixing it in 60 minutes like I initially thought, which I probably will, I'm going to come out looking like a rose, like a rainbow. They're going to think, wow, this guy said 90 minutes and he managed to get it done in only 60 minutes. You're going to look amazing for it. Meanwhile, you kind of knew from the start it was going to be 60 minutes. But should something go wrong, because this does happen sometimes, guys, that's called life. Should something go wrong, you've got a buffer there. And if you now accidentally end up taking 80 minutes or 90 minutes, well, no problem, because you told them it was going to take 90 minutes anyway from the beginning. So with that in mind, that brings me to my next point. Meet expectations and a timeline. I think I just clarified that one now, didn't I? So this will be things like telling the customer it's going to take an X amount of time and actually meeting that deadline or exceeding it. You know, you want to excel in it. You don't want to go take longer than what you specified. You want to take the exact amount of time or less. Preferably less, because it looks cool. It looks good. It makes you look good. It makes you look like you know what you're doing. Now, what you can go and do, and a lot of companies don't actually do this, guys, is follow up with the customer. This is something that's not just in IT. This actually applies to a lot of industries. So once you've serviced the customer and you've solved their issue or dealt with whatever you had to go and deal with, you know, it's always seen as professional when a company follows up with a customer or a client and saying, hey, you brought your PC or your car or your whatever to us yesterday, and we solved it. We just want to hear if everything is still okay. Everything good, everything nice. We just want to follow up if you guys are still good. So not a lot of companies do that. Once you've said, hey, this PC is working, they will leave you. Most companies will do that. But you do get those rare companies out there that will legitimately go and follow up with you afterwards. So that's just called good customer service. Alright guys, let me move you on to the topic of professional support delivery. So basically, in a nutshell, this comes down to how you behave at the client should you go to their site, and also how you deliver the service that you are supposed to go and deliver, whether this be at their site or whether this be remotely. Either way, it comes down to that. So with that in mind, the first thing I want to mention is respect. Folks, there's going to be a lot of cases where you're going to encounter people from different countries, different backgrounds, different cultures, different religions, different this, different that. And at the end of the day, we always need to show respect to these people, irrespective of where they're from, their background, or what their beliefs may or may not be. Basically, in a nutshell, treat people the way you would like to have been treated. Anyway, guys, so with that in mind, I think that also brings us to the point of being on time. So that also kind of forms part of respect. So it's very unprofessional for you to go and arrange an appointment with a customer, a client, a user, or whoever, and then for you to go and show up way late or way early. Show some respect by being on time. If you are going to be early, which is not a bad idea, also don't be too early. Maybe about 10, 15 minutes. That should be more or less the butter zone. So basically just be on time. Whatever you do, don't be late. If for some reason, by some circumstance, you are going to be late, sometimes this is out of our hands. Let's say, as an argument, you are stuck in a traffic jam. Maybe there was an accident on the road. You are going to be delayed. If at all possible, I know it's not always possible, but if at all possible, maybe contact this client, the customer or the user, and say, hey, I apologize, I'm stuck in traffic, I'm going to be late. Can we schedule for a later time, or do you want to reschedule, or are you fine with me being late? Just note, I am going to be late. And you'll find more often than not, people don't mind that you're going to be late. If you just inform them ahead of time that, hey, I'm going to be late. At least then they can go and do a couple of other things while they wait for you, And then, folks, if and when you are at the customer, especially if you are physically by the customer, the user, or the client, avoid distractions. Imagine this for a moment. Imagine you are hiring a technician. You are the person hiring this technician. Now, while they are doing their job, which they are charging you by the hour for, they receive phone calls and other things, and this is now about other tickets or other people, which has got nothing to do with your situation at hand. So you're paying them by the hour, but in that hour, they're busy assisting other clients. Don't you think that's a bit unfair? A lot of customers might not take too keen to that. So yeah, keep that in mind, guys. If you are going to take a phone call, it better be about that specific customer, because they're going to figure it out very quickly. So if they can hear, oh, okay, this is about my situation, it's about my ticket or my situation, whatever this might be, they generally don't mind, as long as you are assisting them, and they're obviously getting value for their money here. But as soon as they get sniff in the nose that you are busy assisting somebody else, or you're doing other things in the time they are paying you for, yeah, guys, that's very unprofessional. I mean, put yourself in that person's shoes. Even I know I wouldn't be happy with that. Alright, and then, guys, what about if you come across confidential or private material? And this is gonna happen. There's going to be many cases where you're going to be working on people's machines, and there might be some documents, files, and programs and stuff open, which might be very confidential. The same might happen for physically on their desk. Maybe there's some papers and stuff lying around out in the open, which is actually very confidential. So what you should do, and what you could do here, is to inform the customer, the client, or the user, if at all possible. Once again, it's not always possible, but if possible, which usually is the case, inform them. Dear sir or madam, you've got a couple of documents open here that looks like they might be confidential. Do you want to maybe put that away, or are you fine with that being open? Maybe just mention to them, have you closed anything private and confidential on your machine? Have you saved all your documents? Just, it's a courtesy. It's still nice to ask. And you'll find that even if we can go and connect to a person's machine remotely, which is something you guys are going to do a lot. These days, it's very common to assist users and customers remotely. Before you go and connect to the machine remotely, if you're on the phone with them, or if it's possible, phone them up, talk to them and say, hey, listen, is now a good time for me to connect to your machine? Have you closed anything private and confidential? Have you saved all your documents? Can I connect? So you basically get their consent and you just remind them to close anything confidential and private. The fact of the matter is we don't actually need them to close all this confidential and private stuff. Us as technicians, we normally do have access to that, and if we don't, I can go and dig for it. But it's to put their minds at ease. It's more of a common courtesy, guys. And then the last one I want to mention under this specific point of support delivery, guys, is maintain cleanliness and tidiness during site visits. So whatever you're doing at a client site, keep it clean, keep it tidy, keep it professional. A very random common example I can give you guys is, let's say you are replacing the toner cartridge in a laser printer. Now something you guys may or may not know is these cartridges tend to have the habit of making a mess. So what I would suggest you do is before you take that cartridge out is below the printer, put something on the floor or carpet, especially if it's a carpet, because there's a very good chance there's going to be some powder ink dropping on the carpet. And yeah, that's very difficult to get out, and it's going to make it look so unprofessional if you're going to go make a mess at a client. So whether it be something like that or anything else for that matter, whatever you're busy with, whether you're installing cables, whether you're fixing machines, whatever, do not leave it worse than what you found it as. Leave it the same, if not better. Keep it clean, keep it tidy. That's just part of being professional, guys. Now, speaking of being professional, what about professional appearance, guys? So yes, we should keep things clean and tidy, but you yourself should also be clean and tidy. Keep yourself professional. Dress the part. Now, I'm not saying you should arrive there in a suit. Well, I suppose there are some situations that might require you to come in a suit. But generally coming in a t-shirt, maybe some jeans, some cheap sneakers, that should be okay. I would say do not wear any brands, fancy brands. Just normal, modest shirts, modest pants, anything like that should be sufficient. Imagine yourself having to get into the roof, into the ceiling somewhere. Remember, these clothes are going to get dirty, guys, and there's a very good chance you're going to tear holes in them and stuff. So if you're going to be wearing expensive clothes, brands, fancy brands, and you get that dirty or you go and ruin them, you're not going to be happy. So imagine yourself having to climb into the roof of that. Would you be willing to sacrifice that shirt if it came down to it? I'm not saying it will happen, but if it came down to it, visualize that. But at the same time, it needs to look neat and tidy. It shouldn't have any holes and stuff in it. So basically see this from the customer's perspective. You should not look like a fly-by-night. You should not look like a scam. You need to look the part. So if you are a computer technician, you need to look like a computer technician. If you're going to look like a fly-by-night, I'm going to chase you out of there, guys. I don't know about you guys, but I'm going to chase you away. So proper appearance and attire is very important, guys. Proper language also. So when you speak to a customer, a client, a user, be clear, be concise, and jargon free. So don't go and use all kinds of fancy technical terms that's going to confuse the user. I want to basically say go and dumb it down. I'm not trying to be mean here, guys, but sometimes we need to dumb it down to the point where the user is actually going to know what the cheese we're saying here. So if needed, dumb it down to the level to where the customer or the user is going to know what you're saying. But do not insult them when doing so. This is literally just from our side as a courtesy to try and help the user or the customer understand what the heck we are talking about. So if you can, I know it's not always possible, try and use less technical terms. Summarize it. Simplify it. Be straight to the point. Don't go and overcomplicate stuff. Don't give long explanations. Keep it short and straight to the point. Clear. Don't use all kinds of slang. None of that. And then something I did mention earlier, so this should come as no surprise. Cultural sensitivity, guys. Obviously, we all come from different backgrounds, different countries sometimes. We have different things we believe in, and. So this is a very, very wide net. But in general, you need to be sensitive to that. Be careful. People do come from different backgrounds. So as I said earlier, show respect. Be aware of cultural customs, but avoid stereotypes. So I'm not saying you guys are going to go out to go and insult people, but sometimes this happens accidentally. Sometimes you might say something or do something which you never know. This might actually insult them or they might find it offensive. And meanwhile, that was not your intention. So you need to be aware of that. So if you can kind of sort of get a hint of, this person is from that culture or this religion or that religion or this country or that country. I'm just using random examples here, guys. Obviously, the list is much, much longer. You get what I'm saying. So be careful what you say so that you do not offend people. I know it's going to happen. It's still going to happen, guys. But unfortunately, that's not something we can avoid. All we can do is try and minimize this as much as we possibly can. And then the last point I want to say here under professional appearance is overcoming language barriers. This is a very tricky one sometimes, guys. So sometimes people might speak the same language as you, but you know it's difficult to understand them. So let's use English as an example here. English is not actually my first language, guys. So if I speak English and you do not understand what I'm saying, you might need to ask me, okay, I'm sorry, what? Can you please repeat yourself? Can you please explain this in another way? Or you might go and maybe just restate what I said or summarize what I said just to confirm that you understand me correctly. So by clarifying questions or using summaries or restatements or in some extreme cases even visual aids, you can go and confirm that what you heard from me is correct and you're not misunderstanding me. Especially if the language barrier is quite extreme. Sometimes it's going to be very extreme. I'm hoping with between me and you guys it's not that extreme. But there's going to be cases where it's very extreme and you might need to use some of these things I just mentioned to hopefully confirm that what you heard is correct. Now since we are talking about language barriers and things like that, let's talk about professional communication. Yep. So the first thing I want to mention here, which is actually very important, guys, is active listening. So this literally just comes down to focusing fully on the customer. Now, unfortunately, this is not always as easy as it sounds. Some people think, oh, that sounds very easy. I just listen to the customer. No, guys, you need to actually listen to the customer. Don't just listen briefly. You'll find a lot of these customers, they will start explaining their technical issue to you. And often, maybe within the first minute or two, simply due to your experience, you might already know what the problem is. But instead of interrupting the customer, let them finish. Let them speak. Hear them out. Often these customers just want to feel heard. And if you are going to go and interrupt this customer after only 60 seconds, they might, I don't know, they might feel like you're not taking them seriously. Meanwhile, you do take them seriously. It's simply a matter of you already know what the problem is due to your experience or maybe due to you maybe seeing this issue before. But now, if you're going to go and interrupt the customer before they finish explaining, they might feel like you're not taking them seriously and, you know, it's just all around bad customer experience. So let the customer finish, but you also need to know where to go and draw the line in the sand, figuratively speaking. So sometimes we do need to interrupt them. You're going to have to make that judgment call as to when that might be. So one way to go about this, guys, is to maybe at some point in time interrupt the customer after 5 or 10 minutes and say very politely, sir, ma'am, I hear what you're saying. You see what I'm doing there? I'm telling them, I hear what you're saying, so they feel heard. And then I add on to that by saying, based on what you've just told me, I think I know what the problem is. Or based on what you've told me, I now know where I'm going to go and look or what I'm going to go and do. This makes that customer feel like they're being heard and like you're actually listening to them. Meanwhile, you already knew what the problem was ages ago. It's a psychological game is what it is, guys. So in terms of techniques of active listening, other things you can go and use is just restate and summarize their points. So after they've explained a bunch of things, you can just say, okay, you know what, sir? Just to confirm, you are saying blah, 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 blah. And they'll be like, yes, that's correct. I'm like, okay, cool. I've got it. Or I'll go and summarize what they've just said. And then that makes them feel like you actually listened. So that's other techniques you guys can also go and take advantage of. Feel free to go and use that, guys. Lastly, under the techniques of active listening, guys, take notes. Take notes to ensure accurate understanding and reassurance. And sometimes we honestly just forget. It has happened to me where I did know what the customer said. I did understand what the customer said. And I honestly just forgot what they said. It happens because I've got so much on my mind sometimes. And if I'm going to go back to them now and ask them to go and repeat themselves, they might feel like you didn't listen to them the first time. They might feel like, okay, you know what, this guy's just messing around. Meanwhile, I honestly did listen to them. I just really, out of the goodness of my heart, just can't remember because I'm just too busy. My mind's preoccupied. Now, speaking of questions, asking the user questions and stuff like that, let me bring you guys to this topic. Clarifying question techniques. There's going to be times when we need the user to explain to us in their own words what a problem might be. But we need them to do this by giving us more than just a one-word answer. So if you're just going to go and ask them a normal question, that could be seen as a closed question, which means they're just going to give you a one-word answer like yes or no. We need these people, in most cases, to give us more than just a one-word answer. So to do that, you need to go and do something called asking open-ended questions. It's a ninja tricky way that you need to go and use to go and ask them a question in such a way where we kind of force them. It sounds mean to use that word, but I want to use the word force. We kind of force them to give us more than just a one-word answer. So you might say something along the lines of, in your opinion, can you please explain to me the following blah, blah, blah. So I'm kind of leading the user or the customer or the client into giving me more than just a one-word answer. If we go look at closed-ended questions, that's the one we normally do. It's a single word answer, guys. This could be yes or no. It's not limited to that, but that's an example. So when you start asking the user questions, for whatever reason, probably because you're busy troubleshooting or you're starting your troubleshooting process, start with open-ended questions. And then once you're done, maybe just to clarify, ask closed questions, just to clarify. So you might say, okay, cool, sir. So just to summarize, blah, 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 and they'll say yes, or they'll say correct, or they'll say no, or negative. So you just go do a quick summary or whatever, like I said earlier, like a closed-ended question, and they'll simply say yes or no that you've got it correct. All right, and then, guys, something I also want to talk to you guys about. Just by the way, all of this stuff so far is going to be an exam. So let's talk about difficult situations. So this is going to come down to between you and a customer, or let's just say a technician and a customer or a user in some case. So you're going to get many customers or users, and a lot of them, guys, are going to test your patience to levels you didn't even know was possible. So you're going to get those kinds that are just really difficult to deal with, completely irrational. You can't reason of them. It doesn't matter what you say, you can't reason of these guys. Then you get those that are just really, what's the word? I want to use the word dumb. You get those. It doesn't matter how you explain it. They're not necessarily mean, these guys, but it doesn't matter how much you explain something or how much you show it to them, they just don't get it. You're going to get those as well. Yeah, there's so many kinds, but I think the main one we need to focus on right now is the difficult ones, in the sense of the ones yelling at you, swearing at you, insulting you, what to do in those situations. So first of all, view the situation as difficult, not the customer. Maintain a positive attitude. Now, this sounds a lot easier than it actually is, guys. You guys might think, oh, well, that sounds easy. No, guys, this is sometimes very difficult. Some of these guys are really, really going to test you guys. They're going to push you to the limits. So on that note, guys, if any of you guys have ever dealt with difficult customers, whether it be in IT, whether it be outside of IT, let's say you were a waiter or a waitress, tell us in the comment section down below about that. At the end of the day, customer experience is customer experience. So by all means, guys, I would love to hear about it. Please share your experiences down below in the comment section. Let's see who of you guys have had the opportunity to deal with difficult customers and what your experience was. Also, if you managed to deal with the situation properly, let us know. What did you do? How did you deal with it? So I would especially like to know if this was a difficult customer and how you resolved that issue. So yeah, let's talk about it. Let me know down below, guys, in the comment section. So as I've said, maintain a positive attitude. It doesn't matter how much they swear at you and yell at you. Do not swear back. Do not yell back. And this part that I'm about to tell you is really difficult, but you need to go and tell them you apologize for the inconvenience. You apologize for the bad service. Even though you know full right, most of the time it's not your fault or your company's fault. Yet, you need to apologize and say, I apologize for the inconvenience, sir. How can I help you? How can we make it better? So it's excruciating to have to go and do that, guys. It really is. But at the end of the day, that's part of customer experience. What can we say? So avoid negative responses. Do not give them a negative response. Give them a positive response and say, I apologize. How can we make it better? Acknowledge the importance of the customer's concerns. So even if they seem silly, downright ridiculous sometimes, acknowledge the importance and say things like, I hear what you're saying, sir. Yes, I understand. Let's see if we can hook you up. Let's see if we can help you. And. So acknowledge the importance, and basically I actually want to go as far as to say fake the importance of it. Make it seem very important, even though you might know, okay, you know what, sometimes this is a bunch of baloney. It's not important at all. Fake it if you have to, as long as you acknowledge it. And then, guys, avoid being judgmental of the customer. So that can come in many shapes and forms. So when I say judgmental, I'm not necessarily talking about people's backgrounds, like what country they're from, what they believe in, and things like that. This can honestly be a case of experience, maybe. Maybe somebody brought their machine to you, or they asked you to come to them, and now you are tasked with dealing with a technical issue they are experiencing. After they start explaining the symptoms, or whatever this issue might be, you might realize that this is a ridiculous issue. It might be downright silly. You actually feel like you want to slap this customer or this user sometimes, but we can't do that. So avoid being judgmental. Something I want you guys to remember here is, remember, people come from different backgrounds in the sense of you guys are now in IT. You are in a technical field. So you guys are going to have a technical mindset. These people are not always dumb, although that often is the case. A lot of cases, these guys just come from different backgrounds. It might be a lawyer. It might be a doctor. It might be a salesperson. They are experts in their own respective fields, just like you are an expert in your field. I'm sure that when you go to the lawyer, half the time, you've got no cooking clue what they're saying. The same can be said about a doctor. The other day, I went to my doctor for an inspection, and afterwards, my wife asked me, okay, so are you okay? I'm like, I don't know. I don't understand half the technical terms they use. So I'm like, well, I think so. It didn't sound like I was going to die. So that's called mutual respect, guys. So just like I've got no cooking clue what my doctor says to me half the time, I'm sure when I start explaining things to my doctor that's in my field, I'm going to have the same experience. He or she's going to have no idea what I'm talking about. So avoid being judgmental, folks. Alright, so now that we've got that under the belt, let's talk about collaborating to focus on solutions. Now, this one also quite difficult. All of this stuff, guys, seems so easy. It seems so simple when I start listing it. But, yeah, try doing it and you'll see it's not that simple. The customers can be very difficult. So in terms of collaborating to focus on solutions, you're going to have to try and collaborate with the customer in most cases. So identify early signs that a customer is becoming angry. So if you start asking too many questions, or you start taking too long to solve something, whatever the case might be, you'll start noticing. So try and be on the lookout for that. Be careful. Do not take complaints personally. It's gonna happen, guys. This one especially is going to happen a lot. A lot of people will complain, sometimes to you directly. Maybe there's like a survey they've got to complete after you've dealt with their issue, and maybe in that survey they will give you a bad rating perhaps. Do not take that personally. And what's going to happen is sometimes these customers or users will yell at you and swear at you, and when you just hang up the phone call, because that's technically what you're supposed to go and do, is if they get too abusive, just hang up the phone call if it's a phone call. Now what they will do is they will probably go behind your back, try and contact your superiors and say that you are the worst scum under the sun and you don't know how to do your job and. That is why you need to remain professional and why you should not yell at the customer or swear at the customer, because what a lot of them don't know is these phone calls most of the time are recorded for quality and control purposes. So should they go afterwards behind your back and log a complaint and say, you've said this and you've said that and you've done this and you've done that, your boss can just go and listen to that voice recording, that phone recording, and they'll see, oh, okay, but you were actually very professional. So, yeah, another reason to not go and yell and swear at the customers, guys. Let the customer explain the problem while you actively listen. Something I did say earlier. And even though you might know what the problem is sometimes within the first 60 seconds, I'm not saying that will always happen, but very often that's going to happen. Even though you might know what the problem is, do not interrupt them immediately. Let them finish if possible. And then something I just mentioned a couple of moments ago. If the customer gets abusive, especially on the phone, guys, hang up if you receive abusive treatment. Do not yell at them. Do not swear at them. Simply hang up the phone call. It's that simple. Alright, and then one last thing I want to mention for this section, and then we'll finally move into the third and last main section, guys, is do not post experiences on social media. You might be wondering to yourself, what do I mean by that? Now, what often happens in a lot of companies, this is not just an IT, guys, it's definitely not an exception to the rule here, is when people experience bad experiences with customers and users and stuff, they'll go and vent on social media, on Tickety Talk, whatever you guys call it these days, on Facebook or on X, which I think is the old Twitter platform, you'll go and vent there and say, yeah, you wouldn't believe this weenie I had today that's a customer. I don't want to say any mean words here on YouTube before the YouTube popos on my case. But you had this customer and they did this and they did that and. Avoid doing that. You never know who might see that. You never know. Your boss might see that. The customer might see that. And before you know it, you might lose your job. Your company could get sued. You could get sued for that matter. Either way, it's never a good idea, guys. Rather go and do that in confidence with your friends, possibly in a bar. Who knows? So maintain discretion is what I'm saying. Or at least online, maintain it. Avoid referencing specific incidents publicly. Because if you dealt with a customer today about a specific issue, and now you go and post about it on Facebook later that day, they're going to probably know. So if they happen to see it, they will know it's them. So be careful. That's going to blow up in your face. Avoid doing so, guys. Right, folks, before we move on to the third and the last main section, there's a bit of a game I like to play in my videos. Most of you guys know what this game is. Somewhere in my videos, not all of them, I will give you a hidden word or a hidden phrase. And the idea is for you to go down to the comment section down below and make a new sentence using this magical word or phrase I give you. Now you can go and use it as is if you want to, but that's boring, then you might as well not do it. Or you can go make a new creative sentence, obviously sticking to YouTube's rules, don't go and be mean. So let's see who of you guys can be the most creative. Now why do this? Because it's funny. If anybody's reading through the comment section and they haven't actually watched the video up until this point, they'll probably be wondering to themselves, what the cheese is going on here? Why are people talking about this topic? Meanwhile, it's just a random topic I've thrown into the video just for giggles. It's an inside joke for people that actually watched the video up until this point. So, with that in mind, today's hidden word or words is social media. Since I'm seeing it on the screen there, let's just grab that words. Social media. Let's see who can come up with the most creative sentence using the words social media. Remember, stick to YouTube's rules, guys. Anyway, moving on. You are still allowed to go and ask normal questions in the comment section down below too if you guys want to, just FYI. And I will get back to you. So the next section, the third main section, is types of operating systems. So in terms of types of operating systems, that's literally the first point we're going to be talking about, ironically enough. There's many, guys. I mean, computer-wise, there's many. If you go look at the operating systems we get on our mobile devices, phones and tablets, there's an insane amount. I think the two main ones, of course, is Android and iOS there. But you do get other ones as well. And you get many other operating systems which are not even mentioned in a lot of courses. So let's start with two very well-known computer operating systems, or at least that's where we use them most of the time. Windows and Mac operating system. Now these two are very well known. If you look at Windows, guys, that is internationally used by everybody. Everybody uses that. If you look at Mac, yes, it is in a lot of countries in the world, but it's not as well known as Windows, and it's not as popular as Windows. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying it's worse than Windows. I'm not telling you that the one is worse than the other or the one is better than the other. Absolutely not. It's just random. Mac is not as popular in as many countries as Windows. In my country, for example, Windows is the main operating system that 95% of the country is using. Only 5% of my country would actually be using Mac. And in my country, people only go and get themselves a Mac if they want to go and show off. Because in my country, Macs are very expensive. About 3-4 times more expensive than a Windows machine. So the only people that have them are people that want to show off. Some sort of manager or something. And funny enough, most of the time when they get these devices in my country, they've got no cooking clue how to go and use them. Which is just hilarious. So in terms of Windows, there is Image. It's not the best, but there you go. So Windows, currently the latest version at the time of the making of this video, is Windows 11. So at the moment, you can still go and use Windows 10 and 11. Both of them are still supported for now. So anything before Windows 10, if we look at the Windows side of things, is considered legacy now. Now Microsoft has announced that Windows 10, they will stop supporting it in October 2025. Now I'm not sure if that will still be the case. It's very well known that Microsoft likes to go and push dates back for whatever reason. So I personally think they're going to go and push it back because about 60 to 70% of the population at this point in time are still stuck on Windows 10. So considering how many people are still using Windows 10, I think it's fair to assume that Microsoft will go and kick that can down the road. But who knows? We will see when October month comes what happens if Microsoft's going to go and stop support for it, in which case Windows 10 will then be considered legacy. You can still go and use it, you just won't receive any updates, any patches, any security fixes, but you can still go and use it if you want to. So we'll see. Maybe October will come and they'll go and kick the can down the road. If you're watching this video after October 2025, yeah, drop a comment down below and say, hey, I'm watching this video after October 2025. It looks like Windows 10 is still here up and running, or Windows 10, it turns out Windows 10 was discontinued. Yeah, well, let's see what happens. And then, guys, in terms of Mac, there is an image of what Mac looks like. So if you are a Windows user and you switch to Mac, it's going to feel like your whole world is thrown upside down. And of course, vice versa. They differ vastly from one another, these two, but they're both amazing operating systems to go and use. Anyway, folks, other operating systems you get is something called Unix. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly. Linux and Chrome operating system. Now, Chrome is relatively new. I'm not talking about the browser here. I'm talking about the operating system. Yes, you get an operating system called Chrome operating system, in case you guys don't know. Now, Unix is not a free one. Some people confuse Unix with Linux. Linux, guys, is a free operating system. It's open source. It's based on Unix. So Unix was made a long time ago, decades ago. And back in the day, and I think even till this day, it's predominantly used on platforms like servers and stuff. But yes, you can go and use it on your own machine too if you want to. It's predominantly used on servers and platforms like that. Linux, same story, very much the same as Unix, except it was made by someone called Linus many years ago in the 90s, I believe. And he made this operating system available for completely free to the public. So if you want to, you can go and access this code and you can go and change it in whatever way you want. There's many versions of Linux you can go and use, and a lot of them have got a graphical interface now. So Unix and Linux for the most part in the beginning was very command based. Nowadays you'll find these operating systems are actually very graphical interface based. They've got GUIs you can go and use. And then folks, Chrome operating system is the one that's the youngest out of the lot here. It's still relatively new. Not really used by a lot of things yet at this time, but I think give it enough time and we'll see the difference. Other operating systems we get, folks, is iOS, which is Apple's version for phones. And then we get Android, which is Google's version for phones. These are both operating systems which are predominantly used by mobile devices like tablets and phones. And no, it's not limited to tablets and phones. It's just usually used on tablets and phones. That's the most common place you'll find them, but you can absolutely go and use these on other platforms, and you will find them on other platforms. Now, in terms of phone operating systems, guys, those are not the only ones. Those are the only ones that's mentioned in this course. But if you go check online, go run a Google search or something for phone operating systems, you'll find there's quite a few out there that's not on this list. Quite a few. If you go look at Huawei, that's got their own operating system now. They used to use Android, and then Mr. Donald Trump was not very happy with that company because of them being Chinese, as I understand it, and Google being an American company. So they had to go and basically come up with their own operating system, which is very much like Android. In some ways, it's actually better than Android. But all in all, in general, it's really not that bad of an operating system. I actually like it. Anyway, folks, there is a picture of Apple, you know, more or less. It's not the latest picture, but it'll do for now. And there, sorry, I'm going slowly so that you guys can actually see it. There is a picture of Android, also not my finest work. It's not the latest, but it'll do for now. End of the day, guys, you know what? Just go online, go and Google it, go on YouTube it. You'll find there's lots of images and videos of what Android looks like or what Apple looks like. I'm sure you've seen it on your friend's phone. Everywhere around us, people have got iPhones and they've got phones with Android on them. Literally every second person will have one. So if you have Android, just ask your friends that's got iPhones what Apple looks like. If you've got iPhone, just ask your friends that's got Android what it looks like. And you can just go and check on their phones. So I'm sure you've seen it somewhere. Right, now since we are talking about operating systems, guys, let's talk about operating system compatibility issues. This is especially a problem if you're moving from one version of an operating system, you know, let's say Windows, to another newer version. There was a point in time where Microsoft released a new version of Windows every 2 or 3 years, and it actually got very annoying at one point because every time Microsoft decided to release a new operating system, the programs and games and stuff we had on our previous Windows would not work on a new one. Some would not. was a very annoying time. Now, luckily for us, for quite a few years now, 7, 8 years if not more, we were running Windows 10. So we had no issues. We did not have to go and deal with this upgrade penury we find ourselves in. Now, we've got Windows 11 again. So we're about to go through that again. Now, there is some light at the end of the tunnel here, guys. Pretty much everything that works on Windows 10 does coincidentally work on Windows 11 as well. So it is very compatible with one another. Yes, there's going to be cases where some games and programs just absolutely do not want to work on Windows 11 if they worked on Windows 10. So you're going to get those scenarios. But for the most part, I think if I look at the past, compared to when Windows every time brought out a new operating system, this is the one where I can say we've had the least amount of issues. And I think maybe it's got to do with the fact that they've had so much time to go and plan for this. Now, what do we do to get around these compatibility issues? That's basically kind of sort of what this is all about. So we're going to talk about hardware compatibility and update limitations. And as I've just said, new operating system versions may require updated hardware. Now, besides what I've just said, guys, new operating system versions, never mind, softwares and games and stuff not working on them, you might require new updated hardware. So if you switch from Windows 10 to 11, you might find your computer physically can't run Windows 11 because now you don't have enough RAM or your hard drive storage is not enough. Or maybe now, and this is actually a better example, you need a TPM. TPM is short for Trusted Platform Module. It's an actual chip on the motherboard, does a lot of things, but predominantly it's used for encryption and storing encryption keys and things like that. Now, it's absolutely not something new, folks. We've always had it. But it was normally seen as a luxury, an extra, which allows us to go and use BitLocker encryption and things like that. On Windows 11, Microsoft says it's a compulsory requirement. It's not. You can definitely go and bypass it. Absolutely not a compulsory requirement. But Microsoft would like you to believe that it is. So for a lot of people, if they want to go and run Windows 11, they're probably going to go and try and get themselves a TPM and. So that's things to keep in mind. There is a possibility that when you switch from one operating system to another, or from an old one to a newer one, that you may possibly have to go and upgrade some of your hardware. Now, in terms of software compatibility, apps, guys, are coded for specific operating systems in most cases. So the developer, whatever game or program they made, they developed it perhaps for Windows 10. And if you're going to try and install this on Windows 11, it's not going to work. It's just not going to launch. It's going to give you an error. So there's ways around that. Many. We don't really discuss it in depth in this specific course, but there's ways around that. One way would be to go and right-click on the icon of that program or game. So on your desktop, right-click on the program's icon, go to Properties. You'll find there's a tab there somewhere it says Compatibility. It's got a little drop-down list. It's going to show you the current operating system that you're running, and in that drop-down list, you can go and choose a previous operating system. So if you're running Windows 11, and you know for a fact this game or program of yours worked on Windows 10, in the drop-down list, choose Windows 10. So it's going to run that program or that game in compatibility mode for Windows 10. You'll find that it actually allows you to go back further than Windows 10. You can go and choose Windows 8 and Windows 7. Some operating systems allow you to go back further than others. So just go and choose an older operating system, one that you know for a fact this program or game worked on. And the idea in essence here is the next time you launch that program or game, it's going to launch it as if it's running on that operating system. Now, Microsoft will probably like us to believe that this is going to solve all our problems and it's going to work all the time. The fact of the matter, guys, is it's not. I've seen personally this only works half the time, if not less. But it is a path of least resistance. It's very quick, very easy. It requires absolutely minimal effort from our side. You've got nothing to lose and something to gain. I mean, it's going to take you literally just a couple of seconds to go and choose this. And if it works, great. Then you solve the problem. If it doesn't work, it only took a couple of seconds of your time. You can just go and switch it back if need be. Other options to go and look at is to maybe go and install that program or game on a virtual machine. Something I have discussed with you guys before. So on a virtual machine, you can go and install another operating system, one that is in fact compatible with that game or program. Alternatively, you can go and install that program or game on another computer or another server and access it remotely via the internet or via the network. There's many ways to get around this, guys. So you can go and use the network to help you with compatibility. But speaking of network compatibility, that's also something you need to go and look at. Sometimes when we switch to different operating systems, you might find the network is not compatible with that operating system. Maybe in the sense of the equipment that's running on it, the switches, the routers, and things like that. So make sure you check network compatibility as well, guys. Something that's very important, probably the most important thing here, is user training and support. At the end of the day, guys, in your company or your client's company, you are as strong as the weakest link. And the weakest link, I can tell, is almost always the user. So whether it be just teaching them how certain things work, or whether it be teaching them about security and safety. At the end of the day, you can have security software that looks like it's straight from NASA, but if your people have not been trained to use security correctly, it means nothing. It just takes one user at that company to go and open the wrong email attachment, or to click on the wrong link, or to download the wrong file. Boobity bop, everybody's infected, and the whole company is put at risk now. So at the end of the day, the security means nothing if the users have not been trained. And the same applies here. In this instance, we're talking about operating systems. So if you are going to go and use a certain operating system, or perhaps a newer operating system, train the users on it. I'm not saying you have to go and send them on some sort of fancy course, although you can if you want to. But maybe just invite them to the boardroom or something, or invite them on Zoom or Teams, and show them, hey guys, this is Windows 11. This is what it looks like. This is how you open a program. This is how you install something. This is how you navigate it. Just show them the basics. Alright guys, and then before we move on, in terms of compatibility, one last thing you can go and use, and I did kind of mention you can go and use network for compatibility, is to go and use web applications to mitigate compatibility concerns. So guys, that basically just refers to software as a service. This software that you would normally have installed on your own computer and that you would be running on your own computer, that's not going to be installed someplace else. This is going to be installed on a cloud provider server, some entity like Microsoft. They will have this program installed, this application. It's going to be running on their servers. It's going to utilize their resources, and it's literally just going to display on your screen or the user screen via the internet, possibly via a browser perhaps. So you do not need to worry about operating system compatibility. You do not need to worry about hardware. Do you have enough of this or enough of that? Nope. As long as you or this user has a fast, stable internet connection and a screen, that's it. That's all you need. Alright folks, I'm going to take you over to the last topic in this section, and for this module, quite frankly, vendor lifecycle limitations. So it's basically just the circle of life for programs and applications, and quite frankly, a lot of things out there. This actually includes hardware as well, but we're going to come at this from an application perspective. So when we have new applications, possibly even games, guys, but with a lot of new applications out there, we generally release them in a beta phase first. Or if it's possible, the developers will go and release this in a beta phase. It's a testing phase. You can go and use it, sometimes for free even in some cases. It's not officially released yet. So when something is in a beta phase, they rely quite heavily on the public's feedback, whatever this might be. So you'll find there might be a lot of bugs and a lot of glitches because it is in the beta phase after all, guys. And if you experience some sort of bug or glitch, which is very likely, there's normally some sort of pop-up that will pop up which allows you to go and give the developers feedback so they can go and fix these bugs and glitches. So the public beta phase, guys, in that phase, the vendor or the developers of this, whatever this might be, they gather user feedback from people like you. Then once that is now done, once they've more or less sorted out all the kinks and the bugs and the glitches and all that, then they actually release it to the public for actual official use. Now we call that phase the supported phase. That is where the developer or the vendor support their product. They support their application, hence the name supported phase. So in that phase, they're going to be doing active marketing, they're going to be doing regular patching and updates and all that. So if they find some sort of instability or if there's some sort of weakness, they will go and deploy some sort of update, some sort of fix, some sort of patch. And they're of course going to be actively marketing this program of theirs, and they're going to be selling it. So this is the phase where it's actively being used and they're actively making money out of it. Now what does happen eventually with a lot of programs, maybe not all of them, is they will reach a phase called the extended support phase. That means the product is no longer sold, this application or operating system for that matter, guys. It's no longer sold, but you can still receive critical updates and patches and stuff. A very good example at this point in time will actually be Windows 10. In most countries, in most stores, if you go buy yourself a computer now, guess what operating system is going to have on there? If it's Windows, it's going to be Windows 11. Some sort of edition of Windows 11. Now, at the moment, as I'm making this video, Windows 10 is still supported. Like I said, they said they're going to stop support for it on October 2025. We will see. That date might change, so maybe you guys are watching this video after that date. But at the moment, as things stand, as I'm making this video, Windows 10 is still supported. But yet, if I go to a store now to go buy myself a computer that's a Windows computer, it's going to have Windows 11. So now, Windows 10 is currently in this extended support phase, where in most countries, you can't exactly buy it anymore, but you do still receive updates for now. And should they decide to go and stop support for it in October, that means you can still use it, but they're not supporting anymore. There's going to be no updates, no fixes, no patches, nothing. So if Microsoft decides, you know what, let's stop support for Windows 10 in October, that would bring Windows 10 to its end of life phase. EOL. No longer supported. No security updates and significant security risks, which is why you'll find so many companies will go and lose their minds. Whether they like Windows 11 or not, they're going to very quickly start switching over to Windows 11. So any company, proper companies that is, that's still currently on Windows 10, if Microsoft eventually inevitably goes and stops support for Windows 10, you're going to see it's going to be a matter of months just afterwards that the companies will start switching over to Windows 11. Not by choice, but because they get forced. They get audited, these companies, folks. These companies, almost all of them get audited. They've got security auditors that will come in there. And if they have operating systems running on their systems that do not receive any updates, that's a massive security risk. So companies absolutely cannot afford to run an operating system that does not receive security updates and patches. So whether they want to or not, they will get forced onto Windows 11 if they're still running Windows 10. That's an example of the end of life phase, guys. Now this end of life phase, I've just given you guys an example of operating systems, but this does extend, of course, to applications as well. Right, folks, we've reached the end of Module 11. I hope you've learned something. If you have, show me by giving the video a like. I really would appreciate it if you guys do that. Of course, like usual, I'm going to remind you to also subscribe if you'd like to know when Module 12 comes out. And remember, like I said in the beginning of this video, if you want extra material over and above what you guys see here, either go check the end of this playlist where you're going to find practice questions that's going to test you against the same objectives and the same skills that you will be tested against in the exam. So those are very good at testing you against that. And if you want something more over and above that, just go check out my Patreon. The link is in the video description down below. There you will also find practice questions as well, guys. Right, folks, before we conclude this, just a very quick shout out to the supporters. Thank you very much, guys, to all of you making donations. So those of you just buying me a coffee or a milkshake, by the way, you can find that in the video description down below if you want to buy me a coffee or a milkshake. You can make a PayPal donation. Speaking of which, here is a list of the guys making PayPal donations. Thank you very much, guys. Really do appreciate it. Or you can become a Patreon where you're going to gain extra content access and you'll be supporting the channel. There's multiple tiers, so some of them are just free tiers where you don't have any access. You're just going to become a Patreon. There's tiers where you just support the channel, and there's tiers where you actually get access to content depending on which tier you choose. Should you become a Patreon, you can choose whether you want to have your name displayed on this list or not. That's only for the paid Patreons, of course. Alright, folks, and before we conclude this video, in case you don't know, but I'm sure you do, the channel does have a Discord server. Link in the video description down below if you want to join that community. If you want to be in a study group or ask questions, check out the group. And of that, guys, I conclude this video. I will see you in Module 12 of the CompTIA A+ course.